Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. In his first address to a joint session of Congress, President Donald Trump vowed to expand the United States military budget, end the Affordable Care Act, and sharply restrict immigration into the United States. The Washington Post reports the 60-minute speech included multiple factual inaccuracies, which include Trump taking credit for jobs that were actually created under the previous administration and misrepresenting statistics to make unemployment and crime rates appear significantly worse than they are. Trump also repeated his claim that he's draining the swamp of government corruption, a statement that caused some Democratic lawmakers to laugh, given Trump's cabinet largely consists of millionaires and billionaires with unprecedented conflicts of interest. Many Democratic congresswomen wore white to Trump's speech to honor the women's suffragist movement. Throughout the address, Trump reiterated his campaign's extreme nationalistic vision for the country, although he sought to soften his tone and delivery. Trump opened his speech by condemning attacks against Jews and the murder of an Indian man in Kansas last week.
Recent threats targeting Jewish community centers and vandalism of Jewish cemeteries, as well as last week's shooting in Kansas City, remind us that while we may be a nation divided on policies, we are a country that stands united in condemning hate and evil in all of its very ugly forms.
That's President Trump speaking last night to Congress, condemning the 5 nationwide waves of bomb threats targeting Jewish community centers, the desecration of hundreds of grave sites at 2 Jewish cemeteries, and the murder of an Indian man in Kansas by a white man who reportedly yelled, "Get out of my country," before opening fire. Trump's been under enormous pressure to condemn the threats and attacks. But just earlier in the day, President Trump reportedly made a strange comment about the anti-Semitic threats during a meeting with state attorneys general, in which Trump appeared to question whether the Jewish community itself was behind the bomb threats. Pennsylvania Attorney General Josh Shapiro says Trump said of threats, quote, "Sometimes it's the reverse, to make people or to make others look bad," unquote. Shapiro said Trump went on to use the word reverse 2 or 3 more times. In response, Stephen Goldstein of the Anne Frank Center said, quote, "Mr. President, have you no decency? To cast doubt on the authenticity of an anti-Semitic hate crimes in America constitutes anti-Semitism in itself, and that's something none of us ever dreamed would disgrace our nation from the White House," unquote. During President Trump's speech to the joint session of Congress last night, he announced plans to create a new office called VOICE. That's Victims of Immigration Crime Engagement. Trump has previously directed the Homeland Security Department to publish a list of crimes committed by immigrants, which some historians have compared to Germany's Nazi-era policy of publishing lists of crimes committed by Jews. Trump invited family members of people killed by undocumented immigrants to his speech last night. Democrats, meanwhile, gave their tickets away to immigrants, including 16-year-old Angel Reyes Garcia and 14-year-old Jacqueline Reyes Garcia, whose mother, Guadalupe, was deported back to Mexico earlier this year after she went to a routine ICE check-in. During Trump's speech, he reiterated his campaign promises to crack down on immigration and immigrants living in the United States.
My administration has answered the pleas of the American people for immigration enforcement and border security. By finally enforcing our immigration laws, we will raise wages, help the unemployed, save billions and billions of dollars, and make our communities safer for everyone.
But only hours earlier, Trump reportedly suggested during a meeting with TV anchors at the White House that he might be open to a form of immigration bill that would grant legal status to millions of undocumented immigrants. We'll have more on Trump's speech and immigration policies later in the broadcast. During Trump's speech to Congress last night, he also honored Navy SEAL Ryan Owens, who was killed in a botched raid on a Yemeni village that also left 25 civilians dead, including 9 children under the age of 13. Last night, Trump referred to the raid as being highly successful. At the speech, Owens' widow, Karen Owens, fought back tears as Trump called her late husband a warrior and a hero. However, in a taped interview with Fox and Friends that aired earlier in the day Tuesday, Trump blamed Owens' death on the generals.
This was something that was, just they wanted to do. They came to see me. They explained what they wanted to do, the generals, who are very respected. My generals are the most respected that we've had in many decades, I believe. And they lost Ryan.
Owen's father, Bill Owens, refused to meet with President Trump at Dover Air Force Base and has called for an investigation into his son's death. Speaking to the Miami Herald, Bill Owens said his conscience wouldn't let him meet with Trump and has said, quote, "Why at this time did there have to be this stupid mission when it wasn't even barely a week into his administration," unquote. President Trump's expected to sign a new executive order in the coming days limiting or barring entry into the United States by refugees or residents of some majority Muslim nations. His first executive order banning people from Iraq, Syria, Iran, Sudan, Libya, Somalia and Yemen from entering the U.S. was blocked by the courts last month. According to the Associated Press, Trump's new order will not ban Iraqi citizens from traveling to the United States. Education Secretary Betsy DeVos is facing backlash and ridicule after she claimed that historically black colleges and universities are an example of school choice, following a listening session at the White House Monday with the presidents and chancellors of these historically black colleges and universities, often known as HBCUs. In a statement, she wrote, quote, "HBCUs are real pioneers when it comes to school choice. They're living proof that when more options are provided to students, they're afforded greater access and greater quality," unquote. On Twitter, many ridiculed DeVos's comments, saying they displayed a lack of historical context. HBCUs were established because black students were prohibited from attending public colleges and universities throughout much of U.S. history. One Twitter user wrote, "Betsy DeVos said HBCUs were about school choice, as if white-colored water fountains were about beverage options," unquote. Another user joked that it was as if DeVos had said, quote, "Rosa Parks is a real pioneer when it comes to seat choice," unquote. The backlash against DeVos's comments come as White House counselor Kellyanne Conway has responded to criticism over a series of photos showing her kneeling on a couch in the Oval Office with her shoes on in the middle of President Trump's listening session with the presidents and chancellors of the HBCUs. In her response, Kellyanne Conway repeatedly used the wrong acronym to refer to the HBCUs.
Take a certain angle and was doing exactly that. I certainly meant no disrespect. I didn't mean to have my feet on the couch. I just want people to focus on the great work of the HBCU presidents.
In India, crowds of people protested against President Trump at the funeral of 32-year-old Srinivas Kochibatla, an aviation engineer who was shot and killed by a white man in Kansas last week. Navy veteran Adam Purinton reportedly yelled, "Get out of my country," before opening fire on Kochibatla and his friend who was wounded. Purinton apparently thought the two Indian men were Iranian. At the funeral in the southern Indian city of Hyderabad, mourners chanted "Down with Trump" and held up signs reading "Down with Racism." In Colombia, the Constitutional Court has ruled in favor of the miners and residents of the town of Marmato, who have been fighting an open-pit gold mine for 10 years. In its ruling Tuesday, the judges said the town's Afro-Colombian and indigenous residents who've been fighting the massive project have the right to be consulted about whether the Canadian-based Gran Colombia Gold Corporation can continue parts of construction. In Louisiana, news has surfaced that black transgender teenager Jacarius Holland was murdered last month, making her at least the third transgender woman to be killed in the state of Louisiana in February. Holland was 18 years old. She was initially misgendered in local news reports about her killing on February 19th. She's at least the seventh transgender woman to be murdered in 2017. Uber CEO Travis Kalanick is under fire after Bloomberg News published a dash cam video of him arguing with and insulting an Uber driver in an expletive-filled tirade. This is driver Fauzi Kamel confronting Kalanick about his decision to lower the prices for rides for the company's high-end service, Uber Black.
I lost $97,000 because of you. I bankrupt because of you.
Look.
Yes.
You know what?
You keep changing every day.
What have
you keep changing
hold on a
every
second.
day.
What have I changed about Black?
Huh?
What have
you
I
changed
changed?
the whole business.
What?
You dropped the prices.
On Black?
Yes, you did. Did with $20. Started with $20.
You know what?
How much is the mile now? $2.75?
You know what?
What?
Some people don't like to take responsibility for their They blame everything in their life on somebody else.
Email for town card?
Good luck.
Good luck to you too.
After the video surfaced, CEO Travis Kalanick said, quote, "To say that I'm ashamed is an extreme understatement," unquote. Uber's also embroiled in a controversy over allegations of sexual harassment. On Monday, the head of the engineering department was fired after it emerged he'd failed to disclose he'd left his previous job at Google amidst sexual harassment accusations. His departure comes a week after a former Uber engineer said she endured sexual harassment on the job and that Uber's HR department had refused to take action. And today is the legendary singer, actor, and activist Harry Belafonte's 90th birthday. For decades, Harry Belafonte has been a leading voice for civil rights. He was one of Martin Luther King's closest confidants and helped organize the March on Washington in 1963. More recently, he was an honorary co-chair of the Women's March on Washington, the largest protest after a president's inauguration in U.S. history. In December, Harry Belafonte joined Democracy Now! For our 20th anniversary celebration in the historic Riverside Church here in Manhattan.
A group of young black students in Harlem just a few days ago asked me what at this point in my life was I looking for. And I said, what I've always been looking for. Where resides the rebel heart? Without the rebellious heart, without people who understand that there's no sacrifice we can make that is too great to retrieve that which we've lost, we will forever be distracted with possessions and trinkets and title.
Again, Harry Belafonte turns 90 years old today. And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman.